Who is the GOAT in the NBA? We know you probably have your opinion, and we have ours. Join in on this episode of the Let's Debate podcast, which begins right now. Welcome, everybody, to our second annual episode of the Let's Debate podcast. My name is Nick Delahanty. I am a co-host on this show. Before we get into anything more, I want to bring in my sidekick, my dynamic duo, my cousin, and my show host, Kyle Delahanty. Kyle, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in this week. It was a quick week. Last week on the inaugural episode of Let's Debate podcast, we talked about who deserves credit for the two decades of dominance for the New England Patriots, Tom Brady or Bill Belichick. We want to thank you guys for tuning into that. If you haven't checked that out yet, make sure to check that out on our website, which Nick will jump into right now.
Yeah, and before we get into that, notice how some of the bigger media outlets started talking about that conversation this week. So I think we kind of set a trend a little bit.
Oh, absolutely.
So now, since we last talked, and you said it was a short week, and it really felt like it was really quick, we had a couple of updates in regards to our show. First and foremost, we're powered by Anchor. Our website is listed below. You could see it scrolling down on the screen right here. And then we also are very active on social media. Kyle, get into our social media for us.
Yeah, so we're active on social media. If you want to check us out on Facebook, obviously some of you guys might be watching right now. Make sure to like and follow our page, Let's Debate Podcast. You could also check us out on Twitter at Let's Debate Pod.
Yeah, exactly. So make sure you interact with us. We'll be posting our upcoming questions for the week on our social media feed. Obviously, we want you to comment live, but if you have an opinion that you want us to think about before the show, let us know via social media. All the support is definitely appreciated. And again, if you don't listen to our show live, we have plenty of outlets for you to take care of that. First and foremost, our show, as you see it right now, is on YouTube. So once the show is over tonight, you can head over to YouTube in about an hour after the show, and it will be there live and ready to rock and roll for you. If you're not into listening on YouTube or tuning in live, don't worry about it. We are on multiple podcast platforms. We're on Breaker, Castbox, Google Podcast, Apple. We'll be on Apple Podcasts very soon, Spotify, Radio Public, and Pocket Cast. Now, I know that's a lot to know, but again, as we mentioned before, go to our website, powered by Anchor, anchor.fm/Let's Debate. And again, it's on the bottom of the screen. I think we're making it pretty easy for them to tune in, don't you think?
Yeah, we're giving them multiple different outlets to check us out on. I know last week I had some people reach out to me saying they didn't have Facebook. I let them know that you could still check it out. You can head to our website. You can listen on Spotify, which I put on my Instagram page. But remember, Facebook Live is, I feel like, our main outlet. We would love to interact with people. Make sure to leave comments in the comment section. And yeah, let's get started on this podcast today.
Now, this is a topic that me and you talk about a lot. And I feel like this has just been boiling to the point where we needed to talk about this live on the air, and it couldn't wait anymore. You know, last week we started with the whole Belichick Brady thing. As two Jets fans, it killed us to talk about their dominance over 20 years. But this is a very fun topic that I think is going to get a lot of interaction, and that is, who is the GOAT, in your opinion, in the NBA? Now, before we get into the whole topic, and obviously there's pretty much two dark main horses in this race. Was there anybody that we might not fully talk about that you considered for this position?
I mean, I don't think I really consider too many people that deeply, but I think it also depends on maybe the generation you grew up watching, right? So let's say the 50s, 60s, 70s, where you watched guys like Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain and Julius Erving, or let's say it's in the 80s with Magic and Bird, 90s with Jordan, and now with the 21st century being LeBron, Kobe, even guys like Shaquille O'Neal and Tim Duncan. It really depends. I know for me, the guy that I chose to be the GOAT, or I think is the GOAT, is a guy that I grew up watching. And I know that a guy that Nick decided to choose is a guy that he grew up watching. So, yeah, I think there's different guys you could consider depending on who you grew up watching and being biased about.
Now, make sure that our listeners are giving their comments. We want to hear what you think about during the show as well. This is a great topic. There's really no wrong answer, and I think that we're going to break down some of the understandings that people have in terms of this debate. And mind you, we both think that both of these players that we're going to talk about are legends in their own outright, and that they're both special players and nothing should be taken against them. Uh, this is something that we both differ on, but there are very good points to be made on both sides. So I think that we should just get the ball rolling. I don't know if they really need an introduction, but you want to give them our two guys we're going to debate tonight?
Yeah, so tonight we're going to be debating between Michael Jordan and LeBron James. And as Nick mentioned, I feel like this is a topic that between these two guys that has been going on for years and years. It goes all the way back to LeBron James actually being in high school, where he was kind of pinned down as the chosen one. And I think the reason, I'll give you a quick hint as the reason I think that he's in this discussion is because no one had more pressure put on them than LeBron James at such a young age. Those expectations were set so high by everyone across around the world. And I feel like he surpassed those expectations. And Michael Jordan never really had those expectations going into college or even the NBA like LeBron did.
Now, as we get into this conversation, and I think that we were both on the same page in terms of what we were going to do research wise. Again, you could research it however you want. We both kind of shied away from the numbers. But when you look at head to head, and we're going to pull it up on our screen, it's nothing fancy for you, but it gives you the idea. The topics that are covered on here, whatever is listed under that player's name, is how they rank head to head. So, for example, Jordan has his 6 championships, 5 regular season MVPs, so on and so forth. If you look at LeBron, he has more seasons played, more all-star games, average more rebounds, more assists, more total points. And you can make the case that a lot of these numbers kind of give people a reason why to side with one side or the other. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. And I think some of the stats in there, or let's say championships or MVPs or anything like that, sometimes that's the main point of discussion. I know for a lot of people who are the fans of Jordan or let's say LeBron haters, they always mention the championships, right? That Michael Jordan was 6-0 in the championship and LeBron's 3-6. As for, let's say, NBA seasons, that ties into it too. Some people try to say that, well, LeBron's played more seasons, got into the NBA at a younger age. So, yeah, that's how people pull the strings to this conversation. But, yeah, I think the numbers speak for themselves for both players too. And that's why this is such a heated debate because, I mean, you could see it for yourself how close these guys are to the top.
Yeah, and when you're looking at these guys, you're sitting there and you're saying to yourself, they both have their own kind of specialty in terms of what they did, and they both have their flaws, and they both have the reasons why you could very much say that they aren't deserving of the GOAT title, and they do have their reasons why they deserve the title. It all depends on how you look at it. But I think that some of the things that we need to look at and what we're going to cover tonight go in terms of longevity in terms of the NBA. Now, mind you, Jordan went to college. At the time, it was mandated you had to go to college. You had to play a certain amount of years. He played 3 years for Dean Smith in North Carolina. LeBron was able to enter the NBA at the age of 19. So LeBron had a little bit of an advantage because not only does he have more years under his belt, but as a player of his caliber, you're entering the NBA earlier in your career, and you do have a lot more time to accomplish things.
Yeah, definitely. And that goes back to what I mentioned. I feel like they had 2 completely different paths, and people could say that LeBron, coming out of high school, gave him more opportunity. But I feel like that ties into the conversation too, because the fact that LeBron is still playing at the level that he's playing at, longevity, being at the top, having that pressure on him, whereas Michael Jordan decided to leave the NBA, go and play baseball for the Chicago White Sox. To me personally, I'm not putting an asterisk next to his name saying, well, if he played this amount of seasons or never left the NBA, he's going to have more points or more championships, because to me, that's a choice he decided to make. LeBron wants to stick to his craft. He wants to become the greatest of all time, and you got to respect him for that.
But now think about this, right? We were talking about it before the show, and this is something that will mind boggle me for probably the rest of my life. Jordan's coming off a back-to-back-to-back, and we all talk about how hard it is to get to finals or championships in any sport. It's a hard thing to do. Jordan just picked up and went to baseball. Like, he didn't second guess himself. He just went to baseball. Like it was like, oh, I'm bored. I want to go play baseball. So he took a year off. Then he has another run where he goes and he's dominant. And what does he do? He retires for 3 years. Then he comes back. So it didn't really make sense as to what Jordan was thinking and how he went about his business in that way. But it just will always mind boggle me that such a great, you know, kind of just walked away from the game that he grew up loving and played for, I get the whole situation with baseball, but he walked away for 3 years, then decided to come back. It was kind of like he wasn't sure about it, but then figured out, I can still do this. I could come back.
Yeah, and I don't think I personally have never seen anyone do that, at least of that, high, being that caliber of a type of player. I know and I think I should have said this from the start. Me being a LeBron James fan, I have to obviously let people know that I was too young to really watch Michael Jordan play. So I don't mean to sound biased in a sense, but obviously I've seen enough highlights. I've done my research on both players. Nick got an opportunity to really see Michael Jordan play. And I think he has the right to really speak on it about a player leaving to go play baseball the way he did. I've never seen that happen. I'd be, shocked if LeBron James decided to do that.
Yeah, I think he'd be pretty good. I think he would leave for the NFL, though.
Yeah, and I think that goes to say how much of a freak athlete he is, because I think everyone knows that he would succeed in the NFL. And I'll get into all that as to why I think overall he's just not just a greater basketball player, but a greater athlete, and possibly, arguably, the greatest athlete of all time. And you can keep me to a word on that. I'm serious about that.
And you think about it too, and you make a really good point in terms of, you're sitting there and you were a little younger than me. So I got to see the back end of Jordan's career when he came back. I was able to witness that. Growing up a Carolina fan, I've done a lot of research on Jordan. I've watched a lot of games. Honestly, I've probably seen every game Jordan's played in, whether it was on replay or live, just because of the fact that I grew up idolizing him. He was a guy I love to watch. So it does tie into the effect of there are people like yourself that are going to side one way because that's what you grew up knowing. Perfect example. We talked about it on my podcast, the Pinstripe Talk podcast. We both loved Derek Jeter growing up. That was the norm. That was the situation where that's all we knew. So we defended Jeter to death. Jeter could have been one of the worst players in the game. He could have been one of the worst defensive shortstops, but none of us wanted to hear that. That was blasphemy to us. So in that sense, you're sitting there and you're siding with the guy that you grew up knowing. That's what you knew. So it's very logical to have that happen. It's nothing that shouldn't be surprising to anybody because that's nature. You side with what you know.
Exactly. And I guess I kind of wanted to jump into something too. I know we talked about the amount of seasons. I believe LeBron James is currently in his 17th season, which is obviously suspended right now due to the coronavirus. Hopefully they're able to get the ball rolling on that and things get cleared up, because as a LeBron fan, I think you can make a strong argument that he was having an MVP type season, and the Lakers might have been the favorites right now to win the NBA Finals. But yeah, LeBron's in his 17th season. Michael Jordan played 15 seasons, right? Both players had 13 playoff appearances in their careers. And you would think with, Michael Jordan being 6-0 in the NBA Finals, winning 6 Finals MVPs, LeBron James being 3-6 in the Finals, winning 3 Finals MVPs, it sounds like Jordan has, the better playoff resume. But in reality, Jordan didn't just jump into the NBA and succeed in the playoffs. It took him a few years to get his sidekick, which I'm going to bring up later on, that I think is a huge point in this, but I don't want to bring it up yet. But I don't really dive too much into the whole season MVPs thing and how many all-star appearances, because at the end of the day, that's a popularity contest. If LeBron James and Michael Jordan truly wanted to win an MVP every year, they can. Just like Tom Brady could win one in the NFL, and it's a popularity contest. So MVPs, things like that, don't matter to me. Now, the thing that I like about LeBron James over Michael Jordan is Jordan was a pure scorer and a great defensive player. And LeBron James is that all-around great player. And that goes all the way back to his high school days. This is a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid. He was pegged down as the chosen one at 16 as a sophomore. This kid was leaving algebra class, going into the gym and having ESPN cameras out there, getting ready to shoot his game live on ESPN. And when the game cast would start, they would zoom in on him and then show highlights of Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Julius Irving, and say that this kid's the next big thing. So with that being said, I feel like LeBron's that all-around type of player where even when he was younger and now today, you would think, well, he could, if every time he gets down the court and has the ball, he could score, but he's an unselfish player. And the difference between Jordan and LeBron is that Jordan, and you could say the same for Kobe Bryant and Kevin Durant, Jordan had that killer instinct where he got the ball at the end of the game and he won games. And that's like the main argument that people make against LeBron is he's not that type of player.
Now, I have to disagree with you in a little bit of a sense because, and this will kind of segue into our next topic, is the way the errors and the game has changed. Now, Jordan in his finals appearances, if you look at his numbers, he was the all-around player that the Bulls needed. He did a little bit of everything. There was multiple times he averaged more than 7 rebounds, 6 assists. You look at it, he had logged a lot of minutes on the floor. The one thing that LeBron has over Jordan is the body size and the athleticism. He has the ability to play the 4. He has the ability to play a 3. Heck, he could play the guard position. Jordan was mainly a guard, a small forward in situations. The size, obviously, Jordan's a much bigger body. And also, you mentioned how LeBron has an opportunity to score every time down the floor. And there's a good reason for that, because he does draw a lot of foul calls. There's a very fine line in terms of how the NBA is officiated now, and certain guys do get the calls that are expected of them to get called. James Harden, listen, I could tell you probably 900 times I've watched him shoot a 3 and get fouled and not get touched. LeBron going to the basket, any little bit of contact. Zion Williamson, a very good case. He gets looked at, he gets a foul call. The game has changed, and it's made it a lot easier for these guys to score because they're going to the line at such a high rate.
Right. No, and I agree with that. And, it's like we mentioned in the previous episode that we did last week, we're going to agree with each other on these things, and I agree with you 100% on that the game has changed, whereas the physicality, it was so much more physical back then. Jordan going against the bad boys, the Detroit Pistons with Isaiah Thomas, Bill Laimbeer, Joe Dumars, Dennis Rodman. He would get elbowed in the face, no calls. He went through a lot. Now, I want to tie in the competition part of it, though. If you want to bring up the physicality, yes, it's different. LeBron gets a lot of foul calls. We could also bring up the athleticism, too. I think when you look at I'll bring up athleticism quickly first. When you look at LeBron James and the physical specimen that he is, he's a freak. And the players that he's going against now, I just feel like what he's doing, how he's completely taken over the game for the past 2 decades. What do you think he would have done if Larry Bird was covering him? I mean, Larry Bird couldn't even move sideways.
Yeah, but see, there's a difference. There's a difference when you had somebody covering it, back in the day. You had your best defensive player covering you. It didn't matter who it was. So there was times where you were sitting there and you had your guy covering him, and most likely your defensive guy was probably your worst scorer on the floor. They were just valuable in terms of defense. And let me tell you, LeBron went into the hole back then. He was getting an elbow from Rodman. He was getting an elbow from Laimbeer. He wasn't going up and getting the calls that he gets. A lot of the time you watch a game and there's a lot of weak contact that he draws and he gets the call because they play it off well. And the physical specimen plays into that. Yeah, he's a freak. Yeah, he's got the athleticism, all the athleticism in the world. But in the same token, all the guys around him do too. They might not be at his level, but you mean to tell me that Giannis in Milwaukee doesn't have the same athleticism? You mean to tell me that guys like that can't keep up with him? Kawhi can't keep up with him? There are guys that can definitely cover him and get away without fouling him. Which, it's the NBA. The way they call it now, it's kind of like you sneeze, you get a whistle.
No, and you make a good point there. But what I'm trying to say is, I think even LeBron, if they change the game to be more physical nowadays, I think LeBron still succeeds. I really do. But I think he knows that he could get those calls. So why not flop? Why not play it out and get the call? Just like James Harden, he knows they all know that they can get these calls. So it's different. I think if LeBron was playing in the NBA today and it was a little bit more physical, then you have to adjust to that and adapt. And he's done that at all levels that he's played at. And I'm talking high school, I'm talking regular season, postseason, finals. He's always adjusted and adapted. Yeah, maybe not as successfully as Jordan has, right, with that undefeated record in the finals, but he's always adapted, whether it comes to the physical aspect of it, winning games, taking big shots. But now I wanted to bring up the competition. Okay, because, listen, I get it. Back in the 80s, Jordan had a tough road to get to the finals, right? I mentioned the bad boys. You had the Boston Celtics with Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish. But now I think what I personally don't like is when people say that Jordan had a tougher competition in the NBA Finals than LeBron did. And I'm not saying that it's LeBron's competition versus Jordan's. I think they're very similar. But some people try to turn it into like it's Jordan and LeBron's versus no one. When I take a look back at Jordan's first championship in '91, that was a Lakers team that you had maybe Magic Johnson kind of at the tail end of his career, right? He still obviously was playing well enough to get to the finals, but it wasn't the Magic Johnson of the early to mid 80s.
Just to stop you there, Magic almost averaged a triple-double in that finals.
I said he's still playing high, but it's not.
James Worthy averaged 25 in that series. That's two Hall of Famers for you there. You still had guys like Byron Scott, Byron
Scott, though.
Byron Scott was a solid player. A lot of people see him as a coach. He was a solid role player.
All right, so I'll get into the superstars and the solid players in a minute for the LeBron players. I mean, LeBron teams. But the next year, Portland Trailblazers. Who's really a superstar on that team besides Clyde Drexler? Like, I'm talking real superstar.
Well, you had Terry Porter at the time. He was a good ball player. He was very good. You look at the numbers, he was up there. And now you have to also take into consideration, Jordan never only versed one team twice in the finals. What does that tell you? That tells you how everything was so spread out. You had the Jazz. He had twice. They had John Stockton and Malone. You had that Lakers team we talked about, that Portland team. You had Phoenix. You had Supersonics. You had these teams. It wasn't the same team. LeBron, and correct me if I'm wrong, versed the Warriors, 3 times in the finals?
LeBron versed the Warriors 4 times in the finals.
I believe he had the Spurs, 4 times in the finals, and then he had the Spurs 3. So 7.
Yeah, but that was kind of spread out, the Spurs. I mean, they had back-to-back, but...
But now think about this. 7 of the 9 finals were against 2 of the same teams. What does that tell you about the landscape of the NBA?
Well, I don't think it so much says that. I agree with you that we all knew the Warriors making the finals 4 years in a row. We all knew the Cavaliers were. But that doesn't change that Warriors team that he versed better than any team Jordan versed. Hands down. That Warriors team was like an U.S. Olympic team.
Okay, so let's take that into consideration, okay? That 73-win Warrior team, okay, I'll give you that. That team was better than anybody Jordan versed. But what team other than that did LeBron verse that was better than anything Jordan versed? Jordan versed
what I was
60-plus wins.
All right, but what I was saying was, the records, that really depends on, there could have been injuries throughout the season. Records are records. But you want to talk about, like I mentioned, the team, like the Lakers team he versed, the Trailblazers team he versed. The next year he versed the Suns. Who aside from Charles Barkley was a real deal?
Kevin Johnson, Richard Dumas.
They were not Charles Barkley.
But they were good. You
aren't walking down the street talking about Kevin Johnson.
Listen, you're not a 60-win team for no reason.
Yeah,
and again, in the world of superstars, and you know what, I hate to say it, but you're a product of the generation you grew up in. You're used to guys leaving and having to team up to win. Back then, you didn't have to. So you had situations where you had 1 or 2 stars on a team, and the rest of the team was a bunch of like guys that just were there to produce. Like you had guys like Steve Kerr, like on the Bulls team, that they weren't big names, but they did their job. And I think that's why the NBA is so different now, because the minute that you can't win where you are, what does everybody do? They call up their buddies. Oh, I want to play with you. I want this. I want that. So when you're looking at it in the same token, there are situations. Yeah, LeBron beat the Warriors team that had 73 wins, and that team was fantastic. They were great. They had Durant, Curry, Thompson, you name it, they had them. However, in the same token, he was able to go back to Cleveland where they had Kyrie, they had Kevin Love. They weren't just a bunch of slouches.
Yeah, well, so once again, the NBA landscape has changed. Back in the day, they didn't bounce around to different teams, but now they do. And I was going to get into this a little bit later on as well. I feel like I should get into it right now, but I don't want to jump into it. LeBron took a team with absolutely nobody on his team to the finals in 2007 as a 22-year-old. His sidekick, Zydrunas Ilgauskas.
I wouldn't say they were nobodies. Ilgauskas had I believe Ilgauskas had a couple of All-Star appearances. Larry Hughes, Drew Gooden. I don't think they were a bunch of slouches here.
Okay, so name. All right, I don't even need to do it. Jordan always had Pippen, and then eventually the last three Rodman. He never got to an NBA Finals. Actually, you know what? I'm just gonna bring this up now. I feel like this is my main case. This is where I think it breaks off. So Michael Jordan got drafted, I believe, in the 1984 draft by the Bulls. Okay, when he took over that team, they went 38-44 in his first year. Made the playoffs. That's a losing record. They made the playoffs, and they lost in the first round. His second year, they went 30-52. Losing record again. Made the playoffs, lost in the first round. His third year, 40-42. Made the playoffs, losing record, lost in the first round. It wasn't until his fourth year, that's 3 times making the playoffs at a losing record, doing absolutely nothing. It took his fourth year where they got Scottie Pippen. The ball started, it started rolling for them. They started increasing in wins. It took another 4 years to finally get over that hump, win championships, okay?
But now wait, before you keep going, you're missing a very key point here.
Yeah.
The East was loaded.
Okay.
The East was loaded. LeBron's the East was a cakewalk for a good portion of the time he spent in Cleveland. And a good portion of the time he spent
How deeply are we talking into it, though? I'm talking his first few years.
Yeah, I'm talking about the in terms of talent. It wasn't like Jordan walked into the NBA and the East was easy. The East wasn't as strong when LeBron came into the league, and it hasn't been ever since. It's been a weaker conference for the majority of his career.
Okay, but you're not only versing the Eastern Conference to get to 30-52. You're versing the Western Conference.
But I'm talking about playoff wise. I'm talking about once you get there.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying that everyone talks about LeBron. Michael Jordan kind of cruised and he's the GOAT, this and that, but he didn't really get the ball rolling until he had Scottie Pippen. Listen, he really didn't.
And you could say the same thing.
Yes, but as a team,
you could say the same thing about LeBron with Wade. Yeah, he got to the finals, but he lost.
All right,
he didn't win until he went to Miami, which right. I want to get into that point too, because I'm gonna go on my soapbox. Okay.
All right. You want to go? Or you want me? You want to finish what I was saying? All right.
Go ahead. I cut you off. Go ahead.
No problem. So what I was getting to was, so you had 3 playoff appearances to start off his career, losing records. Pippen gets there. They start winning, get a little deeper into the playoffs. 4 years into having Pippen, they finally get over the hump, win championships. Now, what happens in 1994? Jordan's first year not playing. The GOAT, right? This is the GOAT. They just won a championship. He goes to play baseball. He leaves the team, the greatest player in the world, the greatest player ever. The Bulls went 55-27 without the greatest player in the world.
But did they win the title?
They didn't win the title, but that's now let me compare that to what LeBron did. Like I mentioned, LeBron took a 17-65 team. That's atrocious. Nobody on the team.
For him.
Hold on. So that's fine, but they don't have talented players. That's the point.
They put me and you on the court to get LeBron. Come on.
They did what they had to do. They got him. They bumped to 35-47, all right? The next year, 42-40, missed the playoffs, okay? 42-40, missed the playoffs. That's already a better record than Jordan had until Pippen came, okay? Then they finally get the ball rolling, 50-32. By his fourth year, where Jordan was at year 4, he needed Pippen. By year 4, and hold on, just let me finish. I know you're going to jump in, but LeBron had absolutely nobody at 22 years old and got to the NBA Finals. Zydrunas Ilgauskas, Anderson Varejao, maybe J.J. Hickson. Look those people up. You probably don't even know they exist unless you really watch basketball. But that's the difference. He had nobody and got to the finals. Did he win? No, because the Spurs had won. At that point, they were winning their 3rd championship in 5 years. Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, Tim Duncan, and one of the greatest coaches of all time, in Greg Popovich. Now, I'll quickly get through this. When Jordan left and the Bulls went 55-27, when LeBron left a Cleveland team at 61-21 after the 2010 season, what did Cleveland do? They got the first pick in the draft 3 out of 4 years. They dropped to 19-63. Then LeBron goes to a Miami team, and I get it. He joined Wade, he joined Bosh. But guess what? To me, Bosh, he was a good player, but I never was a huge fan of Chris Bosh. He was the third leg of that. So
you're stealing my spotlight here. Get off the topic of the Heat here for a minute.
All right, hold on. So I'll get through the Heat. So when LeBron leaves to go to the Heat, he took over a team that I believe it was 37-45. Got them to 4 straight championships. Yes, he had Dwayne Wade, but what did Wade do without LeBron those years? Nothing. He won a championship with Shaq. He was up.
Shaq was on the back end of his career, though.
Come on, they're not winning that without Shaq, though. You can't say they won it because of Dwayne Wade, even though he won Finals MVP.
Wade was the Finals MVP.
And hold on, and then when he leaves the Heat and he takes over to Cleveland, yes, Kyrie, Kevin Love, if you want to throw him in there, gets them to 4 straight finals again. And basically the point that I'm trying to get at is that when LeBron leaves the team, they go from up here to completely down. When Jordan left the Bulls, they were still competing at a high level. A very, very high level.
Now I'm going to go on my soapbox here. For those of you who don't know, I am a very huge Kevin Durant fan. I love Kevin Durant with all my heart. He is by far one of my favorite players in the NBA. I followed him since his Texas days. If it wasn't for Kevin Durant, LeBron James would have the weakest, and I repeat, weakest move in sports history. Why? It's simple. LeBron was christened the chosen one. We all knew how great he was. Now, nobody's taking away his greatness. He couldn't win a championship until he went to somebody else's team. He went to Dwayne Wade's team. And yes, that's Dwayne Wade's team. And had to team up with 2 of the fellow top 5 picks in his draft class to win a title. In the East, that's garbage. Now, mind you, I get what you're saying about Jordan. Really, they played against different teams. It wasn't just the East. But compare the East back then to the East back now, and it's a joke. LeBron was literally putting his feet up on the desk and was saying, I'm going to go to the finals. There was no competition in the East. The Miami Heat team, and you made a good point before about what LeBron had that first year in Miami, where it was just basically Wade, him, and Bosh. Other than that, they were a bunch of scrubs, and they still cruised through the East. Why? Because of the caliber of talent. The East was always loaded when Jordan was playing. Yeah, it took him a while, but I don't think that's a way to measure how great he is. Yeah, the Bulls didn't win that year. They won 55 games. Good for them, but they didn't win it. They didn't go to the finals and absolutely win it. And then you look in the same token and you're sitting there and you're saying to yourself, LeBron has his quirks and whatever with the guys on the floor. But he elected to go back and play with Kyrie and Love. He didn't have to go back. He chose to go back. But why was that? Because he couldn't do it in the West. There was fear. If he goes to the West, he don't get to the finals. That's a much tougher situation to go to. So you can make the same case for saying that Jordan struggled. It took him a while to get to the finals, as why didn't LeBron try to go for better competition, go to the West? And then my final point, and this is another thing that I keep losing track of. Now, yeah, it took him a couple of years to get to the finals and get rolling, but do we really measure greatness by how long it takes for somebody to get to the promised land? Look at some of the greats that you could think about, right? I could think about Kevin Garnett, 1 NBA final. Guys like Charles Barkley, Hall of Famer, not 1. So if we're looking at it from that perspective, it took a lot of guys a long time to get there. What Jordan and LeBron did in the finals was unique in the sense of getting there. Jordan had the 6 appearances, LeBron's at 9. But I don't think it's fair to measure against Jordan, given that it took him 3 years to get there. Yeah, you could say Jordan was there, they should have won more, but I think he did his part. I don't think that that's really in the equation here.
So I wouldn't necessarily say that LeBron just kicked his feet up and was cruising through the East. He ran into a really good Pistons team mid-2000s, went to 5 straight Eastern Conference Finals, 2 straight finals, and won a finals.
That was on the back end of that road.
But he had to go through it.
but it was at the back. It wasn't toward
All
the
right, but hold on. So now you have LeBron at 22 years old, getting to the 07 finals. The East realizes this kid's going to take over. What did the Celtics do? Form the first big three ever, right? That's one time it happened. Then LeBron goes later on in his career to Cleveland. What does he do? Does something that's never been done before. In the NBA Finals, he took down the greatest regular season team of all time, the defending champions, who are 73-9, better record than the Bulls. Michael Jordan-led Bulls at 72-10, and beat them when he was down to a 3-1 deficit. Went to Game 7 and won that game. What happens? LeBron's at the top again. What did another team do? Created a super team once again. There was always super teams to take down LeBron James. Yes, he joined the super team and the Miami Heat, but you gotta remember, back in 07 when he went to the finals, and the Celtics formed what they did between Allen, Garnett, Pierce, and even the addition of Rajon Rondo, who was already there, homegrown. What they did was they went to the championship, they won. Yeah, LeBron by himself, I don't want to go through his cast of players again. I almost forgot the names of them. But he had no one. So what was he telling Cleveland? Yeah, listen, my contract is near its end. You guys need to get me some help or I'm out of here. And they couldn't get him help, number one. They didn't want to pay anyone. Number two, Cleveland's not a desirable destination. So what did he do? He took his talents to South Beach and he figured, hey, listen, if you're not going to get me help, there's not so much I could do here by myself when you have a super team like the Celtics hanging out over there. So he went somewhere else, and that's why he went to Miami. And people tend to forget that he just like bounced without giving Cleveland a heads up, like, you need to get me some help, and they never did it. And he joined a super team because of super team. He didn't start this trend. He jumped on it because that's the way you're going to win the NBA right now.
So now you're forgetting a couple of things. Number one, you said about the Warriors team that won 73 games. Big hoopla. Yeah, they beat Jordan's record, but you're also forgetting the fact of the other teams that LeBron played in the finals weren't necessarily as strong as in terms of overall talent as the teams that Jordan played. So it's kind of like a tough situation there because a lot more talent, that's for sure. And
how was there more talent?
Now, wait, let me keep going. All right,
yeah.
Okay. Now, like I said earlier in the show, and I hate this in terms of it, and I hate it when the Celtics did it. They built the super team. They built the blueprint for it. But LeBron took it to the next level. And now when you're considered the best player in the NBA, the people are going to follow what you do. So by doing that, what did it set? It set a spiral. So as much as you want to say, oh yeah, the Warriors, they had 73 wins. They were following what LeBron was doing. LeBron goes back to Cleveland. He's got Kyrie, Kevin Love. Say what you want about Kevin Love. He's still a multiple-time All-Star. Teams love to have him on their roster. He's a guy, yeah, recently he's been struggling, but he was a guy that was an all like NBA type of player for a very long time. So the blueprint was set by the Celtics, and LeBron rolled with it. So when you're in the NBA, you're going to adapt. The NBA teams back then didn't have to adapt the way that the teams now do. You were not in a situation where you were pressed to have to buy superstars because that wasn't the way of the game. You had your one or two studs, and then you went from there, and you built. And that's why there was so much more diversity in terms of NBA Finals when you look at the difference. Like Jordan, like I said before, Jordan played against 5 different teams in 6 finals. So there was a lot more discrepancy compared to now where you really can map out before the season who's going to be in the finals or in the conference finals, because unless there's injuries, those are the teams that are set in stone. There's really not much room to debate it. There you have your higher end teams with your superstars, and then you have the middle of the pack.
All right, and I have 2 points to bring to that. One of them is, are you trying to say that LeBron should have just stayed in Cleveland with them getting no help? Because Jordan did nothing without Pippen. Jordan finally had help. So LeBron's not going to stay somewhere where he's not getting help because, yeah, his legacy is going to be like pretty much tarnished. If he's supposed to be the next chosen one, but he realizes teams around the league are building these super teams, he's not going to be able to get past them. He's not really thinking so much about what Jordan did because Jordan was handed Scottie Pippen. And that's why.
Think about this too. How good was the communication in Cleveland if LeBron didn't even have the decency to tell him he was leaving?
No, he found out from.
No, they found out.
He told him they were part of the Final 3. But he gave them the heads up that he needed help, and they didn't get it to him. So when it came time to make that decision, he was like, well, look at my roster again. It's going to be another 60-win season, but I'm going to get bounced by a super team.
But now what I'm saying in that token was the communication wasn't there. The communication wasn't there to begin with. So, in the same token, I get what you're saying about, how he made the right decision for himself. Obviously, as a competitor, you're going to make that decision. You're going to want to win. Obviously, it's the way of the world. But I just think that it was a weak move in general. I really do.
All right. But I have one more point to make about this as well. When you talk about, that's actually great because that's how I was about to mention right now.
That's why I kind of figured I threw it up there.
Yeah, I was about to mention that right now. We keep talking about these Hall of Famers that Michael Jordan went through, right? And how the league was kind of, talent was spread across the league, right? This team had this player, this team had that player. It's really the same thing. It's just that these players are on the same team. So LeBron, in 10, 20 years from now, we're going to be talking about all the Hall of Famers that LeBron played against too. In the finals alone, he went against Tim Duncan, Dirk Nowitzki, Jason Kidd, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, I've said Kevin Durant already because another team, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. I mean, we're going to be talking about them too. So to say that, well, Jordan versed good, more talented teams. Well, LeBron, the way the NBA is now, these talented players are all on the same team. So it's not, you don't have to go through 14 good teams, but you're going to go against 3 that have basically the same number of teams that Jordan had to go through based on players.
But the difference is, Jordan never picked up the phone and called Larry and said, "Yo, Larry,
he didn't need to. He had Scottie Pippen.
I can't beat you, bro. I want to play with you. Hey, Magic, come to the Bulls. Come win with me." They never did that. That was the difference. LeBron never need to. He didn't need to, but he very well could have.
But he didn't need to.
He very well could have. But you know why? Because he didn't need to. He didn't want to team up with his buddies. He wanted to beat his buddies. That's the difference between LeBron and Jordan. LeBron had to team up with his buddy Wade and his buddy Bosh to win. Jordan never had to do that. Yeah, the Bulls got him the help. I totally and full-heartedly understand that. But he never had to. He never had to team up with them to win.
We'll agree to disagree. If I said that correct.
I just got it's funny because I just got a message from my dad. He said he would love to see LeBron play the bad boy Pistons because now he said he would cry if he had to face Bill Laimbeer in the post.
Yeah, I mean, of course, people, like I said, depending on the generation that you grew up watching, that's how it is sometimes. People are going to stick with MJ because that's been their guy for years. Our generation, I'm not going to sit here and say every single person because I have friends who still think Michael Jordan's better than LeBron. They even think Kobe Bryant's better than LeBron. We're going to get to Kobe in a little bit too. I know we're going to mention him. But for me, it's LeBron James. And I think, like I mentioned, I think what the reason for this is because you bring up the championships. I mentioned the talent on the championships and how certain teams were formed to bump LeBron off. You talk about that ties in the competition as well. You talk about how he came out of high school, the expectations that he had. Not even just the expectations from ESPN and fans, but also what about social media? He's had to live up to who LeBron James is. He's never done a single bad thing. He's always played at a high level, longevity. And then, yeah, I mean, I just think LeBron is the GOAT. I really do.
Now, interesting you bring up social media because that's something I want to attack on too. Social media highly favors LeBron. Why? Because times are different. When LeBron was playing, you had newspapers, you had radio, you had all that. The attention was there. But you don't have it the way that LeBron has it now. Listen, ever since LeBron has been in high school, we have documented on ESPN, on social media. You could go on Twitter, Instagram, even TikTok. You cannot go on any social media feed and not see LeBron James. We know when that guy goes to the bathroom. We know what his kids are doing at any given time of the day. Why? The way the world is now. Why? Because of the hype around LeBron. So I think that social media aspect does favor LeBron because there is so much more to his advantage where he's getting that exposure. Like if you're a younger fan and you're watching, you're seeing all this live. Yeah, you can see Jordan highlights, but you got to follow Carolina fan pages and stuff. You don't see it like you see LeBron. I think that heavily favors him, and it really throws a wrench into this whole equation because it does add to the predicament. It does add to the conversation.
No, I mean, I agree. But I also think that with social media comes more pressure for LeBron to live up to those expectations. And you got to remember, and this doesn't really, not really so much social media. I'll bounce off that and talk about the expectations. Like, once again, Michael Jordan didn't come in with those expectations where he was going to be the greatest of all time. He was just playing his game, getting better and better, and became the greatest of all time to some, not to everyone. But LeBron had this, he was kind of living in Jordan's shadow this whole time. And his whole career has always been compared to Michael Jordan. And that's a lot, to put on someone's shoulders. And I feel like, and once again, we don't know the future, but I think when it's all said and done, and I want to bring this into a question. I think when it's all said and done, LeBron's going to have crazy amount of records. I think he's going to win at least one more championship, and that would be in LA, which is a big accomplishment. But now this is my question for you. Knowing that you think Michael Jordan is the greatest of all time, can LeBron ever get past Jordan? Do you think that there's anything left? Do you think there's anything left to do to get past Jordan, or do you think it will never be done no matter what he does?
Now, see, that's a good question. And honestly, I thought about this. And Brandon brings up a good point. I'm going to put it back on the screen for you.
I noticed that before.
He says that if he wins a championship in LA, he considers him the GOAT. Now, I have to personally disagree on that. I think that winning a championship in LA would definitely booster it a little bit. I just think that it's going to be multiple championships for him to kind of put into the equation just because of the finals record. Not that it's the main thing that I'm looking at, but in reality, I'm just sitting there and I'm saying to myself, Jordan was perfect in the finals, and say what you want about roster and talent and all that. But I think that a couple more championships would make this a lot closer than people do think. So Brandon says one. I would say two. He wins two more before he goes out. I think that this is a very close conversation. And I think that LeBron can overtop him. I'm never going to leave it out of question because he could dominate those two finals and absolutely dominate in the NBA. But, only time will tell. So that's my opinion. I think multiple more championships. I think he needs two more.
So you think he needs to at least get to 5?
Yeah, I think so. I think win 2 and not lose another one. He loses another one, I think it's over.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think if he loses another one, it definitely could hurt him a little bit because then he's kind of lost everywhere he's been at that point. That wouldn't be too good for his legacy. Kurt's saying forget LA. If he wins one with the Knicks, then yes, he had his chance. He bailed on that challenge. Kurt, I'm not sure anyone can win with LA. With the Knicks. If you could put LeBron and Jordan together, they're cursed.
I don't think so. Yeah, I think that somehow they'll find a way to get injured and the Knicks would just be cursed now. But now if LeBron starts losing in LA, does he run to Brooklyn and team up with KD and Kyrie?
I wouldn't mind it. I'm a Brooklyn Nets fan, so
that's why I figured. I was like, bringing up LA, we wanted to mention Kobe Bryant, obviously the late great Kobe Bryant. And Nick, where do you think he ties into this conversation? Because I know there's a lot of people. We're talking Jordan, LeBron, but we know growing up watching basketball, the conversations weren't so much Jordan, LeBron. It was LeBron and Kobe. So what's your take on that? Who do you think's the better player there? Do you think if Kobe is the better player, is there anything LeBron can do to get past him at this point, winning in LA, etc.? I think overall, and I love Kobe Bryant. He was a favorite of mine growing up. I watched him. I got to watch him dominate in the finals against the Nets, and that was really when I took into the equation how good he was. Right now, I think LeBron is the better player. I really do. Kobe was a great he was a legend. I think Kobe's 3 on my list. I think he's a close third. But speaking about Kobe, not so much about his legacy and what he did on the floor, but I think that Kobe set a trend that other players followed. Now, Kobe did a lot off the floor. We all know about his relationship with his kids and how he wanted to coach them and how he was in the filmmaking business and all that. And I think that he kind of set a really good blueprint for some of these guys to follow. And LeBron's one of them. They're very close in age, and they were very close when Kobe was alive. But you see the outlet that they have and the platform and what they do with it, and some guys use it for good. And one thing that I love about LeBron, and I can't take it away from him, is what he does for the community. Like, he had a tough upbringing. We all know the story about it, but he's constantly doing things to just better the community and the world around him. And I give him a lot of credit for it. Some people in his shoes would be cocky and arrogant and not want to, be a part of anything. But he goes above and beyond to make a difference. And I think that guys like Kobe kind of set that trend. Like, you're setting an example for the people behind you, and it's only going to make the world a better place. And I really do give both Kobe and LeBron credit for that. But the main thing that I want to talk about Kobe, and I know I'm getting a little long here, but Kobe's death made me realize something. Appreciate greatness when it's there.
Yeah. Keep going.
20 years we sat there and we watched Derek Jeter, and greatness as it was, you take it for granted sometimes. He's always been there. Then he's gone. And you're like, oh my God, what just happened? Enjoy the last couple of years of LeBron. He's a legend, regardless of where you rank him on your list, regardless of what you think about him. He is one of the greatest to ever play the game. And in a couple of short years, we're not going to see him play. So while you have the chance, take a seat back and watch when he's on ESPN or watch when they're on TNT. So one day when we have kids and talk to them about it, we could say, you know what? We watched Kobe, we watched LeBron, and we could tell them about their greatness and keep their legacy going.
Yeah, absolutely. I also agree. I think Kobe's right there. He's probably a number 3 for me too. And it didn't take his death for me to realize that. I was never a huge Kobe Bryant fan growing up. I was more of a LeBron guy. Kobe was there. I had his jersey when I was younger, the number 8, the gold Lakers jersey from back in the day when he was with Shaq. But I really loved, and Kobe's a great guy too, obviously. We see that. We saw the impact that he left on the world, and that was really touching, the way that everyone kind of came together for that. And I'll get to that in a minute. But I think the way that LeBron has carried himself, and look, whether you're a Jordan guy or a LeBron guy, there are some LeBron haters out there. In all seriousness, with the spotlight being on this guy for the past, 18 years now, what's the worst thing this guy did? In all seriousness, he left the city. He left the city to play basketball elsewhere. This guy has never been in trouble with the law. He's been with the same woman since high school. He has 3 children. He's a great father. He does a lot for the community. He's a great guy. And I think because of Kobe's death and what you mentioned, start appreciating, people like this in this world, especially someone as big as LeBron James is, and realize that, because it hit me pretty recently when they said it was LeBron's 35th birthday. And I'm like, wow, I've been watching him all these years, and yeah, his time might be coming to an end. And that's based on age, but you never know about tragedies like what happened with Kobe Bryant. Yes, he wasn't playing anymore, but you never know what's going to happen. So the next time when the NBA season resumes, the next time LeBron's on, or the next time Kevin Durant's on, or Russell Westbrook, take the time to really watch these guys and just appreciate how great they are. And yeah, I just think that's why LeBron always was my guy, because he was a great guy on the court, off the court. He's a role model. And if you're a basketball player, you're playing basketball growing up, that's the guy you want to look up to. And it hurts to kind of hear people trash him as much as they do.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? It's a situation where that's your guy and you grew up, and a lot of people have that same mindset as you. I am definitely not a LeBron hater in that sense. I appreciate what he does. Just in this conversation, I just think that the only player that could ever triumph him is Jordan. And I think that for a long time, we're going to sit here and we're going to debate players that come along, and we're going to defend LeBron. LeBron's going to be the guy that we kind of push our weight towards in terms of how we value it. Like we said before, there's no wrong answer. Legacy doesn't come around often. Legends don't come around often. Appreciate them while they're around, because, like you said, that you never know. You don't know what happened. We saw it a very long time ago with Thurman Munson, the Yankees captain. He was killed tragically. Kobe was killed tragically. And, you just don't know. So, yeah, we're getting robbed of LeBron time, obviously, because the NBA is on shutdown. But when he comes back, I think this is kind of a wake-up call for us to say, appreciate this guy. Stop hating on the guy. Appreciate the guy. Because you don't know what you got till it's gone.
Exactly. And I know Nick's not a LeBron hater because he talks highly of him too. But when it comes to this, if you're passionate about Michael Jordan being the greatest of all time, you got to make your case, just like I do about LeBron. And like we said, and I've mentioned this in this episode, I mentioned it in the last episode, this is all based on your opinion. You don't have to agree, but you can respect it. And, sometimes like in this conversation, me and Nick get I know, at least for myself, you get a little heated, but that's the whole point of the show. It's fun to talk about these things. Topics like these don't come around that often, right? Like, this is a big topic that people have been talking about for years. And these players don't come around that often. So at the end of the day, whether Jordan's the GOAT now and he remains the GOAT, or LeBron takes over at some point, or some kid 40 years from now does, at the end of the day, appreciate these players, stick to your opinion, and just enjoy watching basketball.
Absolutely. On that, you have any final thoughts for us before we wrap up the show?
No, just want to thank everyone for tuning in. If you're, whether that's live or it's going to be at a later date, thanks to the people interacting on Facebook Live. I had a good time. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We're looking forward to next week, and we hope you guys are there just like we're going to be.
Yeah, week 2 in the books. We thank everybody for tuning in. It's fun interacting. I love putting up the comments as we talk because they make you laugh. You're in the middle of a conversation. You're just laughing because you see something somebody says and you just have to roll with it. Like you said, these debates are meant to get the best out of everybody. They get heated sometimes. They get a little tense, but at the same token, there's nobody I'd rather debate with in regards to sports than with you. So I'm glad we got this rolling. We're done with show 2. And again, we hope that you continue to join in, listen to our weekly shows. And again, we'll be back next week for some more great sports talk. We'll try to get through this virus together. It's tough times out there, but while you're home, might as well listen to us, right?
Exactly. If you're going to be home, number one, stay safe, be smart. And Nick mentioned I'll get to this really quickly. Nick mentioned the comments. We had a lot of good comments tonight, and I was reading them and I'm laughing, but it's hard to bring those up when you're in this type of debate, because once you miss something, then you're sitting here, deer in headlights of what was just said. What should I say next? And also, we noticed that the show has been running for about an hour. It happened last week as well. We're trying to get to a point where we shorten the shows because we understand, some people don't want to sit here for an hour and listen to anyone. I wouldn't want to listen to me for an hour either, trust me. But, we're going to try to shorten them in the future. But we know that this topic was probably going to roll a little longer than we thought.
Oh, without a doubt. And we have some great topics planned for our upcoming shows, and we hope that you continue to tune in. So once again, for Kyle Delahanty, my name is Nick Delahanty. This is the second episode of the Let's Debate podcast. We'll be back next Thursday night with some more great sports talk. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy. We wish you the very best. Enjoy the holiday weekend, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah, guys, take care. We'll see you next week.